Hi, my name's Dan Keane. I'm a composer, producer and musician based in London. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're all doing well. Yesterday, John Mayer released The Feathered Flute on pianobook.co.uk under the newly announced Pianobook Artists banner. And I was excited for John because he has been a regular contributor to Pianobook for the last few years, as have I. We've both built YouTube communities off of the back of shout-outs, really, from Christian Henson. And I've always had his back, and I was excited to meet him at this year's NAMM convention in California. So anyway, Christian shares his video on his channel last night, sharing this new library, and I couldn't help but see a few salty comments about this decision to take Pianobook commercial. And I've read every single comment posted on that video so far. I've gone back to look at the soft nylon guitar video to read similar comments there too. And I just went to bed with a sort of pit in my stomach. And I haven't really been able to shift it today. So I thought I'd get my ducks in a row, decide how I feel about this, and then come back to you with my 2 cents. Now, I started contributing to Pianobook back in December 2019. And at the time, there were about 100 sample packs on the website. And I remember John Mayer releasing his flute and violin instrument, and that really took Pianobook by storm, and I think paved the way for what success on Pianobook would later look like. For one thing, it wasn't just rusty gates and chili bottles, although there was a lot of that and still is. It was very intentional, deeply musical, very beautifully produced. And I think for a lot of people, Pianobook represented an opportunity to scratch an itch to be original. And for many people who wanted to become composers' assistants, this was a well-trodden path. And this community was a place to effectively take your toys to the playground and see what other people thought. At this point, there was no need for compensation or payment because you didn't need to be compensated. You were just making for the sake of making. People enjoyed creating and contributing to the website. And it was a self-nurturing and a self-made community of a very small group of people who just had fun with this little niche, this little corner on the internet that they'd found. And that's as far as it went for quite a long time. But again, John was ahead of the curve because he created beautiful 4K videos accompanying his sample libraries, B-roll, tutorials, walkthroughs, really using his channel as a means of marketing the instruments that he'd created. And this presented Christian Henson with a unique opportunity to make his videos more engaging by being able to take clips from the people who actually contributed these instruments, making his videos better, showcasing the instruments better, because it was coming from the person whose vision it was to create the flute and violin in the first place. Now, in this single transaction of Christian giving him a shout out, this presented John with 3 quite unique advantages. Number 1, he gained subscribers. Every time Christian gave him a shout out, his videos would get a bit more love. Even the stuff that wasn't about Pianobook, he would get a little bit more recognition for. And it's so hard to break the back of that first 1,000 subscribers or even the first 100 subscribers. Once that ball starts rolling, it's much, much easier. And for him, and then later me, Christian was a major cornerstone to the success and growth of those channels. The second thing that happened was John's instruments were more likely to be featured on Pianobook because Christian could use some of this B-roll, some of these extra tutorials and walkthroughs from John's videos, so he was more likely to get featured in the monthly highlights. And the third thing is John was instantly recognizable. People who were contributing from all over the world, they weren't really known, they had a small avatar, but there was nothing to say, this is who I am, this is my identity. But John had beautiful 4K videos sharing his instruments, and that was quite unique. That stuck him out above everybody else. This was the first form of payment, ultimately. Not money, better, recognition, clout, and respect from one of Spitfire's co-founders. Now, this is completely the truth. Pianobook has some wonderful contributors. The community spreads far and wide across the world, but the one thing everyone has in common is they love Spitfire audio. And I have to admit, I too was a Spitfire audio fanboy. In fact, I think I was a Christian Henson fanboy. I loved his videos. He taught me so much that I wasn't getting from university courses that I was enrolled in at the time. Practical skills that you really need if you want to get a leg up in the industry. So it came to be that when I started my Thrumming Textures series on Pianobook, naturally I made a video about it, hoping that I would be featured. And of course, I was. So the next time I made an instrument, I made a video. And again, I was featured. And so on and so forth, to the point now where pretty much every instrument I've ever made for Pianobook has been featured on Christian's channel at some point, and as of recording this video, I've got about 18,500 subscribers. That is thanks to him, but also just all of the opportunities that I've gained since then, including being a composer now for Spitfire Audio, which for me was a real dream come true. I remember at the time Christian saying that he really wanted to support volunteers and contributors to Pianobook, those who'd really gone the extra mile to make the community what it was. And so in 2020, he did the Pianobook Honours List, where he gave a select few people, including, you guessed it, John Mayer, gifts from Spitfire Audio as a special thanks for the work they'd done that year. And this, I guess, incentivized people to be even more generous because they might at some point either get recognition and support or gifts in the form of free Spitfire libraries. And as I say, we were all Spitfire fanboys anyway, so we loved the idea of getting a couple of free libraries. Fast forwarding to this year, and Pianobook is far more generous in giving away libraries courtesy of Spitfire Audio every month. If you think about the monthly highlights and the sample list of the month, those who have gone above and beyond to create beautiful instruments that need to be recognized, those that have been even more imaginative, even more characterful, even more beautiful than the other submissions of that month. Tipping was also announced this year as well through coffee.com. And I think it has a lovely sentiment behind it because the idea is that community members can contribute and can tip what they can to people that they really love. But the reality is people don't really tip very often. If they do, they probably just tip the one time. If I tip John Mayer £3 as a special thank you for his flute and violin, am I necessarily going to go back and tip him again next month when he releases a new library? Possibly not. Now, I think we all knew deep down, and maybe some of us didn't realize until more recently, that Pianobook was really a Spitfire product. I know it had its own website and its own identity, but it's Christian's project. You know, it would be unreasonable to assume that he would continue to pay out of his own pocket towards a website that has really expensive overheads when you consider the amount of gigabytes of sample libraries that are stored on their platform, the hosting, the servers, all of that back end. And so moving Pianobook a little bit closer to Spitfire allows Pianobook to benefit directly from the connections that Spitfire has already, in having a more stable infrastructure, better features for people to create and upload samples by themselves without relying on poor Stephen Talamy to, create that black and white filter, put it on the artwork, upload it, and manage the WeTransfer links, all of those things. This is to pull back some of the responsibility that has been on these volunteers for years. To be honest, I can understand why some people are upset about this rise of paid products, that it looks a little bit like a move to make money off of what was once just an open source platform where everyone is treated like an equal. I think a lot of people felt quite safe in this walled garden where everything was 100% free, and the love of making samples, the passion of creating these sounds was the thing that drove it. It wasn't about making money, it was purely about curating a community of like-minded people, of kindred spirits. But that's not really what this is about. You can't just be a Pianobook artist just because you want to be. This isn't a marketplace for people to start selling sample libraries just because they want to. Anybody who's created a Pianobook artist library, anyone who will in the future, will have displayed great generosity and will have contributed in a big way to this community, finally given an opportunity to sell their wares to people who have been there and seen the work that they've done. And I would suggest that for the likes of John Mayer, who sold his feathered flute library, he's more likely to make money on Pianobook, where people know who he is, than on his own website, which I don't know how many people buy from there, but I'm guessing Pianobook has a bigger customer base of people who are more likely to buy his stuff, who want to support him because they've loved everything that he's made in the past. Supported by this branch that goes back to Spitfire Audio, Pianobook artists can take advantage of the many connections that Spitfire has made over the last few years. Tech support, contact player compatibility, specialist GUI designers and scripting gurus, money, ultimately, that can then pay towards better studio hire, external players, things that are going to make these libraries even more beautiful. You're never going to get a Pianobook artist chili bottle library with one sample that's stretched up and down the keyboard. It's not about that. It's about supporting people who've done great work and who you just want to see them do even better if they had a little bit of support. And with this support, they're going to be able to make something that they never would have been able to make by themselves. It goes back to the roots of what makes the best samplist contributors like John the best. As I said before, being deeply intentional and musical with your approach. And I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you don't want to buy the feathered flute, you don't have to. It's not for you. That ratio between paid and free libraries is still going to be very small. So you're still going to be able to take advantage of all the free instruments. You're still going to be able to make for the love of making. If you don't want to buy a paid library, there's no one forcing you. John's going to continue to make free libraries. In fact, there's a free version of the feathered flute on the website. This is like buying merch from an artist you love. You can either stream their music on Spotify for next to nothing, or you can go to a gig or buy a hoodie. The other day, I went to see Phoebe Bridgers at the O2 Academy in Brixton. Amazing gig. At the gig, she was selling t-shirts, £35 each. I didn't want to buy a t-shirt, so I didn't. But if I wanted to, I could have done. And some of that £35 would have gone back to support the artist. That's a great thing. But on the way out, when I walked out of the O2 Academy, there were about 12 people, and I have never seen this before, and I think this is terrible, but there were 12 people, all with duplicate knockoffs of the merch that was inside. Hoodies, posters, t-shirts for £10. Now, if I wanted just to go and buy a t-shirt, I probably wouldn't just buy an artist's merchandise just because. I'd probably go to a website or a shop that sells t-shirts because that's what they specialize in. But if I wanted to support an artist, I would potentially buy someone's merchandise because that does go to support them. And if I loved their work and had taken advantage of listening to their album on repeat on Spotify for the last 2 years, I might consider going to a gig. I might consider buying a vinyl or a t-shirt, something that actually puts money into the pockets of these people who we hope will continue to put music out, art out, that we can continue to enjoy. So that's the crux of everything I wanted to say. If you want to check out the feathered flute, I'm going to leave a link down below. Support John in the process for the amazing work that he continues to do. There's just one more thing I want to say. Bear in mind that right now there are 100,000 users of Pianobook with 1,000 sample packs, and that is amazing. 2.5 years ago, there were only 100 sample packs, so that growth is fairly astronomical. And at some point, we're not there yet, but at some point there will be 1 million users and 1,000 sample packs contributed every single month. And at that point, and we're not there yet, but at that point, the website will be inundated and saturated. And anyone who visits is going to be overwhelmed by the sheer choice. And at that point, things are going to start moving into lots of separate branches. And I'm going to look for who's making the very best stuff. And when I do, I might consider looking at Pianobook artists first because they've been vetted by the process of making, contributing and paying their dues to the Pianobook community over many years or months. Some people, like a personal blog, just like to put stuff out into the ether and they don't even really care about what comes back because the process of making, it's an accountability thing. For them, just knowing that there's a place that they can upload it at the end, like SoundCloud, it's a place I can put it and I know that it's done. And that urge to finish something is something that I think takes a while because people can be perfectionists. They can spend years making something that's never quite finished. But as soon as you upload it into the world, it has to be done. In your mind, you have to move on. You have to do something else. And I think Pianobook will continue to be that for many people. But when we want to find something that's truly great in 10 years' time, keep tabs of the ones who are making truly excellent stuff, I think Pianobook Artists is going to be a short list of some of the very best contributors to the site. That doesn't take away from the free stuff, but it's a good way to indicate what's really, really wonderful and gives people like John an opportunity to make some money, to be finally financially rewarded for the hard work that he's put in. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't done already, and I'll see you again very, very soon. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I'm going to be hanging out in the comment section.